गोपाला। देवकी नंदन मुरली मनोहर, देवकी नंदन मुरली मनोहर, गोविंद राधे गोपाला। बोलो गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला। बोलो गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला। देवकी नंदन मुरली मनोहर, देवकी नंदन मुरली मनोहर, गोविंद राधे गोपाला। देवकी नंदन मुरली मनोहर, देवकी नंदन मुरली मनोहर, गोविंद राधे गोपाला। बोलो गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला। देवकी नंदन मुरली मनोहर, देवकी नंदन मुरली मनोहर, गोविंद राधे गोपाला। बोलो गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला, 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 गोविंद गोविंद गोपाला। वंदे रामं सच्चिदानन्दं, 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 वंदे रामं, वंदे रामं सच्चिदानन्दं, वंदे रामं सच्चिदानन्दं, वंदे रामं सच्चिदानन्दं। जय जय विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला, जय जय विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला, माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा, माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा. जय जय विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला, जय जय विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला. माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा, माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा. ओ माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा. जय जय विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला, जय जय विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला. माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा, माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा. माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा. जय जय विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला. जय जय विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला. माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा, माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा. विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला, पांडुरंग विठ्ठला. 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 जय विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला, जय जय विठ्ठल विठ्ठल विठ्ठला. माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा, माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा. माझ्या विठ्ठल पांडुरंगा. श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा. श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा. 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 श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा. श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा. हे राम नारायण वासुदेवा. हे श्याम नारायण वासुदेवा. हे राम नारायण वासुदेवा. हे श्याम नारायण वासुदेवा. हे राम नारायण वासुदेवा. हे श्याम नारायण वासुदेवा. श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा. श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा. हे लक्ष्मी नारायण वासुदेवा, 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 हे लक्ष्मी नारायण वासुदेवा। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।
Welcome to Satsang. Let's begin with a few minutes of meditating together. Find a position that's comfortable, stable but not rigid. Ensure that your spine is straight, but let it be a natural straightness, like the way that a tree rises from the ground. Not a gripped iron rod straightness, a natural one. And ensure that the breath can flow freely, that you've got full expansion when you inhale, that there's no muscle that's constricting and restraining the breath. And draw the awareness to the breath. Don't do anything to it. Just become merged into the awareness of it. So the breath itself and awareness of the breath become one. Draw the awareness of the breath very specifically to a place that is low in your abdomen, about 2 inches below your belly button, couple of inches above your groin. It's a spot called the Swadisthana Chakra. And it's an energy center that in several of the world's spiritual traditions is seen as the seat of the energy of the being. It's a very special energy center. So draw the awareness to the breath at that place we call the Swadisthana Chakra. Allow yourself as you inhale to feel that energy center filling and expanding and opening. From the next inhalation, we're going to take the breath from that spot, a couple of inches below the navel, and allow it to rise. So rather than inhaling and pushing the abdomen out, rather than a horizontal movement, we allow the breath to rise vertically. So as you inhale, allow that breath to rise up through the solar plexus, through the rib cage and lungs, through the throat, and up to the Agya Chakra, which is the energy center between the eyebrows, our third eye center. Allow the breath to rise to there. And as you exhale, allow the breath to slowly sink back down into that energy center at the core of the self. Take the inhalations and the exhalations like that. And if you can't carry the breath all the way to your third eye on one inhalation, don't worry. Just take it as high as you can go. And then exhale. Don't stress, don't strain, don't suffocate yourself. See how high it can rise on one smooth, unbroken inhalation. And then allow it to release and exhale. But even if the breath can't make it all the way to the third eye, the intention and attention should still be on the third eye as the breath is rising. So we rise higher and higher on the inhalations, and sink deeper and deeper into the energy of the self on the exhalations. If the mind wanders, just bring it back gently. Don't criticize it or condemn it. But also don't allow it to get carried away on the wings of your thoughts. As soon as you notice the mind has wandered, just gently bring it back to the breath. You can also add a very simple and beautiful mantra to it if you find that the mind is wandering. You can add the mantra of so hum. So on the inhalations, as the breath is rising, you chant silently to yourself, so. And on the exhalations, as the breath is releasing, chant hum. So. Hum. It means I am that. I am all that exists. I am one with the Creator and the creation. I am that. Rising higher and higher on each inhalation, closer and closer to an opening of that third eye, and sinking deeper and deeper, freer and freer on each exhalation. Gently bring your hands together, palms together, namaste at chest level. and gently rub the palms of your hands against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly open your eyes and lower your hands. Welcome again to Satsang. We'll start as always with a question that's come in advance and then open it up to any questions that anyone here may have. What is the most powerful spiritual moment that you've ever had? So many of them. So many of them. Standing on the banks of Mother Ganga for the first time was definitely the first of the most powerful spiritual experiences. And then they just kept happening. They just kept happening in different circumstances, different times, different situations. And they're extraordinary. I always hesitate a little bit because on the one hand, the sharing of the stories is beautiful and it's inspiring and it's interesting and yet the dilemma for me on a personal level comes with, well, that's my story. And your story is going to be completely different. And the last thing that I would want is people to think, oh, well, it didn't happen to me exactly like that. And therefore, it's not right. It's not as good. It should have been like that. And so I'll share a couple stories, but it's really important to realize that these are my stories. And there's a great tradition in so many of the world's spiritual traditions of storytelling. So we know that there is a power in telling stories, which is why we share them. But it's also very important to realize this is just one way. It's like, yeah, today I had a bath in Ganga, and this is the way I went down. I walked down a step, then I skipped 2 steps. Then I turned around and I walked backwards down another 3 steps, and then I sat down on my rear and I slid down a couple of steps and then stood up and walked down one. Then I spun around in circles down another couple of steps, and eventually I ended up in Ganga. All right, that's one way to get in. There's lots of other ways to get in. You could just walk down the steps. You could go the whole way on your rear end, bumping along the steps. There's probably an infinite number of ways one could get into Ganga. None of them being better. None of them being worse. All that matters is you get in Ganga. And I preface the stories with this, because remember, these are stories of getting into Ganga. And and then I spun around, and then this happened, and then I walked backwards, and okay, great. But really what's important is that you get in Ganga. And so, and that's, I mean it metaphorically, of course. Ganga is that divine mother, that power of liberation that here on her banks we love and we worship. But it's the same thing when we talk about connecting to God through spiritual experiences. It's okay, so here's how mine looked. Metaphorically, it was a one step down, skipping two, spinning around, walking backwards, whatever it may have been. But these are experiences and stories of connecting to that which is, connecting to the truth. And just as the truth is infinite, just as God is infinite, so there are infinite ways of experiencing that. So ask yourself, what are your stories? What are your spiritual moments? And stay open, because every moment could be the best spiritual moment you've ever had. All that you need to have a spiritual moment, the best spiritual moment, is you. Because enlightenment, I mean, let's not even just talk spiritual moments. Let's go all the way to the end. Enlightenment is you. It's a removal of the darkness of ignorance. It's not bringing light from somewhere else. It's not that your light is only 40 watts and enlightenment only happens when you get up to 100 watts, so you've got to go out and figure out how to find a 100-watt bulb. That's not it. Enlightenment is literally living in the light of who you are, of the truth. That's what it is. Living in that light of the truth of you. And so the darkness that keeps us from enlightenment is the darkness of ignorance, the darkness of false identification with the role, the titles, the body. The light of enlightenment is you. It's a capital Y, you. So every moment could be the moment of enlightenment if you are ready to drop the darkness. If you're ready to drop that ignorance. Because it's not a darkness of who you are on the inside, it's just a darkness of ignorance. Who you are on the inside, the truth of capital Y, you, is divine, is perfect, is full, whole, complete. We've got all the mantras, all the teachings telling us this in so many ways. So I'll give you a couple of stories, but as I give them, allow yourself to think, what's been my most spiritual moment? And how can maybe this moment become the most spiritual moment? And then how can my next moment be the most spiritual moment? And then the next moment. Because that's what life is. You've only got right now. So the stories by nature are stories of the past. And even if they were extraordinarily spiritual, they don't benefit me in the now. Unless I'm able to have that experience now. The only benefit they give me is I know what I'm looking for. I know when I'm not there. But you cannot be awakened yesterday or tomorrow any more than you can be awakened, or any more than you can be joyful or peaceful yesterday or tomorrow. You can only be awakened now. You can only be joyful now, peaceful now. So use this moment. Can you wake up now? Can you drop that ignorance now? So, with that, a couple of quick moments. The first, of course, was the first moment I stood on the banks of Ganga, which, for those of you who don't know my story, was with no merit at all. I had done no meditation. I had done no study of scriptures. I was not even consciously on a spiritual path. And I always emphasize this because it's really important to understand grace does not discriminate. Grace has no prerequisites. Grace does not say, first you do X, Y, Z, then I will shine on you. I am a living testament to the fact that there are no prerequisites for grace other than showing up in the moment. So there I was, standing on the banks of Ganga, having no idea that this river was even holy, having come simply to put my feet in the river. I was hot, I was tired. We had just arrived in from Delhi, carried our bags across the bridge. Because, of course, the driver who dropped us off didn't bother to mention, there's a boat, let me get you a coolie. The Lonely Planet guidebook hadn't mentioned, if you choose this hotel, you have to carry your bags across the bridge. Anyway, so hot, tired, go to put my feet in the river. I get there. And in that moment, looking out over the waters of Mother Ganga, grace decided that was the moment. And it felt like a veil was ripped off, not just off of my physical eyes, but off of every way of knowing that I had. So all of the ways that we use to know, of course, our five senses, but also our perception, our brain, our understanding, our assimilation, every way of knowing that I had. In that moment, it was like a veil was ripped off, and suddenly, with all of my senses, with all of my ways of knowing, I could see. I couldn't articulate. I couldn't do anything but cry. And for days, literally for days, all I could say was, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's so beautiful. So it didn't come with a lot of eloquence. And when people talk about, describe it, that inability to articulate that moment has not gotten any better over the last 23 years. But it was extraordinary. And it stayed with me for a very long time. Whatever I saw, I just cried and cried and cried and cried and was just seeing the divine in everyone and everything. It didn't matter. Human being, inanimate object, pillar, pole, it didn't matter. And that stayed. And of course it dissipates, and that's what spiritual practice is about. Is, I want to get back there. Show me the way back there. And that's why I say those moments don't do you any good now unless you engage in the practices to hold them. The only benefit that they give is to know this is not reality. About a week later, after having finally met Pujya Swamiji, which is in and of itself another long and beautiful story, but a story for another time, after finally having had his darshan, he had been out of town and So I finally met him. I was wanting to stay in this ashram. And so I finally met him. But before he came, before I was able to meet him, we had waited so long for him to come that I had decided, okay, forget it. They've invented a president. There is no president. He's never going to show up. He doesn't exist. I'm never going to get to meet him. And so let's go to the mountains. And so we had decided we were going to go up to Badrinath the next day. So when Pujya Swamiji finally arrived, the day right before I was supposed to leave, and I told him about the experiences I had had. I didn't tell him I'd been hearing voices, which I had, also a different story, but I simply told him I wanted to stay here. And I mentioned that we were planning to go to the mountains the next day, and he said, no problem. He said, go to the mountains. He said, whenever you come back, you're more than welcome. I'll tell them to give you a room. He said, but I'm only going to be here for a few days now, and then I have to go out again. He said, but even if I'm not here, no problem. I'll tell them to give you a room. So I walked out of his area having had the most incredible experience of knowing with every ounce of my being that I had been sitting in the presence of the divine. And again, there's no way to articulate that. It wasn't like all of godliness of the universe had somehow left its places and come here and coalesced in this being. It wasn't that. But it was an experience that the being in front of me was qualitatively different in terms of not just the form, but the content, like everything about who this being was and what he was made up of was qualitatively different from every being in whose presence I'd ever been. And that difference was a difference related to the presence of divinity manifest. And so I walk out of his room, still planning, okay, I'm going to go back to the hotel and we'll go to the mountains the next day and I'll stay here when I come back. And I get to the hand pump in the middle of the ashram. And I'm about to turn right to walk out the back of the ashram to go to the hotel where we were staying. And I get to the hand pump and I freeze. My feet were literally glued to the ground. So the first thing, of course, I think is something's on the ground. I mean, something's happened. Nothing on the ground. I panic. And I think I've contracted some disease. I mean, either there's super glue on the ground or quicksand on the ground that's holding my feet, and when there's not, because I could still feel the bottom of my feet. And so I knew I haven't stepped in really super sticky gum that's just welded my foot to the ground. Nothing was there. And then I panicked and I thought, all right, I've contracted some kind of horrible illness. I'd had to get all these vaccinations before I came, and I thought, all right, one of them didn't work. I've got polio, I've got tetanus, I've got something in my legs, I've just lost the use of my legs. And I then calmed down a little bit because I realized chances are illnesses like polio or tetanus don't come on quite like this. I had no pain, I had full feeling in my legs. They weren't even asleep, because then I thought, okay, maybe they were asleep. I was sitting on the floor, I wasn't used to sitting on the floor. No pins or needles, no tingling, no pain, full feeling. But I just couldn't move them. Could not pick them up off the ground. A few seconds later, children come tearing down this central pathway of the ashram, just playing tag, running after each other, having fun as kids do. And instinctively, I moved back. And I thought, oh, great, I'm free. Look at that, my feet could move. Maybe it's like the hiccups. I had to be scared out of it or something. But I still couldn't walk forward. And I thought, all right, that doesn't make any sense. I've just taken 2-3 steps backwards. And then I thought, with good scientific reasoning, those of you who don't know, I've actually got a background in science. And so I thought, all right, I've got an illness in which I can only walk backwards. The mind is an amazing thing. And when you are a hair's breadth from the truth, the mind, the ego, the ignorance runs at full speed to try to give you every other possible explanation it can give you for that experience. It can't be that I'm supposed to go back to what... It's got to be that I've got an illness, as crazy as it sounds, in which I can no longer walk forwards, I can only walk backwards. Like, that was more plausible than not supposed to leave the ashram. So I literally start to try to walk backwards. I was already facing my back. I spun around to walk backwards to get out of the ashram. Cannot pick my feet up. They literally will not move. So I realize at that point, I cannot walk in this direction, literally this pathway that runs on the other side of our satsang room, cannot walk in that direction out the ashram, either facing forward or facing backwards. And at that point, my mind ran out of other possible explanations. It's not gum, it's not quicksand, it's not super glue, it's not polio, it's not tetanus, it's not a random illness where you can only walk backwards. And I stood there and I thought, oh my God, there's only one other possible explanation. Because I just moved in this direction 2 minutes ago when the kids had come. I was able to move in this direction. But I wasn't able to move in that direction, regardless of whether I faced forward or backwards. And so I thought, all right, maybe I'm supposed to walk back in the direction I came from. And I was already facing this way because I had spun around. So I started to walk forwards, no problem at all, straight back into Swamiji's area. And of course, I had only been gone 3, 4, 5 minutes maximum. And I walk back in, and he's got a room full of people. He's giving open darshan. And I stand in the back, and eventually he looks up, and I say, I think I'm supposed to stay now. And he said, welcome. But the idea of literally having the ground reach up and grab your feet. You know, I always say, I'm sure that there at some point in my life had been a gentle touch of God. People talk about the touch of God. But for whatever reason, I was unable, not finally attuned enough to feel the touch. And so the universe literally had to hit me over the head with a baseball bat. And so a lot of times when people say, oh my God, well, you know, that's so dramatic and nothing like that's ever happened to me, I always say, well, don't feel badly. I'm not sure that it's a positive thing that the universe had to hit me over the head with a baseball bat. Clearly, if you are more finely attuned to feel the touch, to hear a softer voice, you're going to be able to follow messages without having the ground literally have to reach out and grab your feet in place, lest you walk away from the place you're supposed to stay. There's so many stories, but the last one, I'll just share one more, because it's a story of a different sort. So I had been here about 3, 4 weeks. And a group of people from America came. And at that time, there were very, very few people who came in from abroad. And I started spending a lot of time with them. Big group from America. Here I was from America. We were eating together. And they were people who had known Pujya Swamiji very well. And so they had set up in advance of their visit lots of different activities that the group was going to do. It was 25, 30 spiritual seekers who had come in together with a group leader. And one of the activities was they wanted Reiki. They wanted to get Reiki Attunement. And so they say to me, would you like to get Reiki Attunement? Now, I had no idea what Reiki was. I mean, I didn't know anything. But it was this great adventure, and everything was happening, and everything was extraordinary, and I was basically still crying all the time wherever I looked, and I could barely sleep at night. I wasn't eating much. I mean, I was just having this incredibly physiological, psychological, spiritual, everything simultaneous experience. And so when they said it, my answer to everything in those days was, well, sure, why not? You know what I mean? Whatever the universe is sending me, it is so extraordinary. Yes, yes, yes. So I said, yes. So they said, great, come this evening. He's going to be giving us level 1 Reiki initiation and whatever that is. Yes. So I come in and I was doing some seva, and so I had missed the whole lecture that the Reiki master had given. And I walk in right when they're starting the initiations. And they had chairs set up. There was the master, and he had a few assistants who had come with him. And the group said, you should go in the first batch because you've got seva you're doing, so you don't have to wait. So I sit in the chair, and the Reiki master says, are you ready? I'm like, look, I have no idea what this is, and I missed your lecture. But I'm here, whatever it is, yes. So he says, don't worry, I'm not even going to touch you. He says, just allow yourself to be as open as you can to this healing energy. Okay. So I close my eyes. A couple minutes pass. As he said, he didn't touch me. And I then hear him say, I'm only doing level 1 initiations. He said, but your chakras, which of course was a word I also had never heard and had no idea what it meant. He said, but your chakras are so open that I think I can give you a level 2 initiation as well. Would you like that? Yes, sure. I mean, the level 1 had taken 2 or 3 minutes. I hadn't felt anything. Why not? So, sure. So another few minutes pass, and I then hear him say something like, okay, or you're done. And it literally felt like there was this sound, and it was kind of pulling me back into my body. And it took me quite a while to figure out how to stand up. But I stand up, and I felt very nice, and I leave. And I come into Pujya Swamiji's area where he was giving darshan. This is a story, by the way, with several different beautiful pieces, which I'll make sure that you catch afterwards. I come into his garden, and he's sitting with a group, and I bow to him, and it's evening time, it's dark, and I bow to him, and I sit in the very back of the group. Maybe there's 15, 20 people sitting there. And I sit in the back, and maybe 10 minutes pass. The group finishes. They bow to leave. I also bow. They stand. I also stand. And I start to follow them out, and Pujya Swamiji signals to me. He says, wait. He says, follow me. And he leads me into this little storeroom. And he says, lie down on the ground. I lie down on the ground. He had this very beautiful Asian rug. It was a storeroom. It was full of books. The shelves were lined with books and gifts that people had given him that, of course, he doesn't take. And so everything just gets on shelves to be re-given to other people. And so he says, lie down on the floor. So I do. And he turns off the lights. And I hear the door lock behind him. And he goes away. And in that moment, my entire self, again, there's no words that one can use to properly articulate it, but it literally was as though my entire being expanded and expanded and expanded and expanded to the point where I thought, oh my God, how am I going to explain to him that I've knocked down his walls and his roof? And I just kept expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding. And it was ecstasy, and it was expansion literally into the universe. I mean, up beyond the walls, beyond the ceiling, into the universe, beyond the universe, of the universe, all of that. And at some point, I have no idea how much time passed, he turns the light back on again. He comes in, opens the lock, turns the light back on, says, "How are you?" I have no idea what I said, but whatever it was, it made him realize this girl still needs to be locked into a dark room. I hear the door close again. I hear the key close again. Again, I'm gone. And at some point, again, I have no idea how long it was, the door opens and the light turns on, and that actually was our cook who came in and says, "Swamiji says you eat food." And by the time he came in, I had come back to my body. I mean, I think a couple of hours must have passed in the whole time of it. Come back to my body, was aware again of the rug on the floor, aware again of where I was. Cook takes me by the hand into the kitchen and feeds me some food. But to me, what's so beautiful about that story, the sacredness of the spiritual experience of the story, of course, is in one piece the experience that I had, that clearly this Reiki master had just shattered the container of myself, of identity, and I just burst into an experience of oneness with the universe that was extraordinarily beautiful. But to me, what's even more extraordinary about the experience than that, because that's an experience that in different ways and different words many, many, many people have had, was the fact that sitting 20 feet away from me, 25 feet away from me, in a nearly dark garden, my guru could tell. He had no idea I had gone for the Reiki initiation. He had no idea anything had happened. I hadn't told him. But that he could tell from looking at me energetically, this is a girl who should not be roaming around. This is a girl who needs to be locked into a storeroom that's small and containing, in which she can have whatever experience she needs to have in a safe place. And that he knew that simply by looking at me for a moment across a crowd of people, and knew exactly what to do such that the experience could happen in its fullness. Because if I had somehow had to then manage and be with people, I mean, I have no idea what would have happened, but I wouldn't have had the fullness of the experience that I was meant to have. So those are three very, very different experiences. But as I began, they keep happening. But more important than those specific moments in time is the moment right here and right now. Because other than being beautiful stories and beautiful memories and beautiful reminders of what is, I'm only able to benefit by what the state of my consciousness is right here, right now. And what that makes us remember is wherever you are in every minute. Let that be a moment that becomes an extraordinary moment. I mean, I have extraordinary spiritual experiences sitting in Arti almost every night. Allow yourself to be in situations, to engage in practices, to be with people where that happens for you. Because all you need is you. If you're blessed enough to have an extraordinary guru, then you're double blessed. But that experience is in you. If there are any questions, yes.
How much time did you spend in that dark room?
You know, it's a good question, and I'm really not sure. I believe my guess is it probably was a couple of hours. Because what I do know is that the meeting with the Reiki master was immediately following. It was immediately following the Arti. I had come up from Arti. I had finished off some seva, and I had gone in, and I was maybe 15, 20 minutes late, during which he had given his introductory talk. The Reiki thing took probably 5-7 minutes, 10 max. I sat in Pujya Swamiji's garden again, maybe 10-15 minutes with him and them. By the time the cook came and brought me in for food, everyone else had eaten dinner and left. But it wasn't midnight. You know, I mean, it was still like a reasonable hour. There were still people in the kitchen. So my guess is it was just that kind of couple of hours between pretty much right after Arti and a quite late, we're about to close up the kitchen dinner. Yeah. If anyone has any other questions, I am happy to take them. Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Yes.
Like, I feel when it comes to attainment, you feel really happy when you attain something in your life. So that moment is like, you feel like you want to attain this and attain this. But when we comes to moksha, like when we say this is our ultimate end, the end of count, like this is where the things end. Don't you think then if we will attain moksha, we won't feel the experience of getting those experience of attaining something, because when we will reach at the end,
I get it.
we will not
Yes.
feel that feeling.
Of, yeah, did it.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
So I don't. So this way, my question is: so if we keep on attaining, so this way we will stay connected with the Mother Earth, because it has gravity, and gravity also pulls. So don't you think if we keep on attaining, we will not get moksha, or like we can get moksha by attaining something, or we can get attaining and attaining
Okay.
throughout our lives?
Okay.
Yeah.
Great question. We'll take it in brief now before we conclude, but I'm also happy to go into it in more depth tomorrow. Moksha. As you said, we feel so happy when we attain things. But is that attaining of things and that happiness that we experience keeping us connected to Mother Earth, which pulls us in gravity and therefore prevents us from attaining moksha? Right? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So moksha is not beyond body. Moksha is the Sanskrit term for freedom, liberation. And a lot of times, yes, we think about it as people talk frequently about attaining moksha after they die. When I let go of my body, then I will attain ultimate freedom. But the truth is, it's not the body that binds us. The body is not a jail. The body is not a master. The problem is the mind. When the mind is under control, the body becomes a phenomenal tool. It allows us to behold the extraordinariness of the creation such that we can even love the Creator. Sunsets. Look at the sun. Before I came to India, the only spiritual experience I used to have were watching the sun reflect and refract through the interlaced branches of redwood trees lying in the dirt on my back, watching. Look at the ocean. Look at the stars. These are moments that bring us into spiritual experience. The eyes, our ability to see, that's not bondage. That's something that can help bring us freedom. It's the mind that uses the eyes, or that responds to what the eyes see, with anger, with greed, with lust, with jealousy. It's not the eye's fault. Our nose can smell a beautiful fragrance, smell incense, and through that lose ourselves. In meditation, we can smell kapoor coming out of our yagna fire, lose ourselves. We can hear sounds of mantras being chanted, the sound of which has the power alchemically to transform us. How could the ears possibly be the hindrance between me and moksha? If in order to attain moksha, I'm supposed to listen. Right? King Parikshit had to listen to the Bhagavad. This is what he was told, right? I won't go into the whole story, but there is a story of a king who was bit by a snake and told he has 7 days left to live. He panics. What's he going to do? He wants to attain moksha. He's told, listen to the story of the Bhagavatam. That was the first katha, the first recitation over this period of a week. Well, if he didn't have ears, how could he listen? If we are told, listen to the glories of God, the stories of God, well, you need the ears. If we're told, chant the names of God, we need our lips, we need our tongue. So the body is not what binds us. It's the mind that binds us. And so moksha is not about, oh, free me from this body, you'll just take another one. That's the cycle of reincarnation and karma. You're just going to get another body. Until you free your mind, you get to just keep doing this. So don't think that by being done with this body that you're done until the mind is done. And so use the body. Use the legs to carry you to holy places like you've done to come here. Use the legs to sit in meditation. Use your lips and your tongue to chant God's name. Use your hands to do seva. There's a beautiful line in the prayers we chant every morning that says, Mukhome ho Ram Nam, Ram Seva Hatme. Let the name of God be on your lips. Let his work be in your hands. Well, so you need hands. If we were supposed to be handless, the line would say, let the name of God exist even though you can't chant it. Let his work never be done because you don't have any hands? No. Let his name be on your lips. Let his work be in your hands. Use the body. Free the mind. That's moksha. And then be grateful for however many years you have left in the body to experience the glory of creation without allowing it to fill you with anger and greed and lust and envy, ignorance. The body is just a tool. Free yourself from the mind. Then when the body drops of its own accord, then you will attain actual oneness with God without the body. But if you haven't attained that in the body, don't think that by dropping the body you're going to get that somehow somebody else is going to do the rest of the work for you. You go to sleep with your homework undone and the tooth fairy is going to come and finish it for you? No. You do the work. Then when that ultimate sleep comes, well, your work is done, so you go to God. But if your work isn't done by then, that divine tooth fairy is not going to come and do it while you sleep. You get to just take another body and come back and finish it. So the earth isn't the problem. The earth is the gift. Mother Earth is the gift for us. The place on which, in which, with whom we're able to experience this incredible divine life.